What is up, guys, and welcome back to Electrix Moto. Today what we're going to be talking about is the new 80 amp hour battery that we put in our 2024 Surron Ultra B. This process comes with some pros and some cons. We'll go through all of that today and try to give you the best information that we can on if this type of upgrade is good for you and the way that you like to ride. This battery is from DHSXE, and it is not something that we have put on our website yet because we are still doing testing. And obviously it costs a substantial amount of money to bring batteries into the United States right now. So before we go out on a limb and start trying to sell this battery, we want to put it through its proper paces. Now let's start with the pros, because I think the one question everybody has is about range. 2 days ago, I believe, we took this bike out on the trail and we rode it for 34 total miles. Now that was a lot of wide open riding. The trails were not that difficult. It was really forest road systems here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where we're at right now. And it was a good representation of how this battery will perform under pretty normal riding conditions. We had to take a road for about 5 miles, which means our throttle was wide open. The trails we were riding on were really easy, really flowy, so we were going fast the entire time. And to put all that into perspective, we had Cohen, who's holding the camera, actually on this bike 75% of the time, and I rode the Stark 25% of the time, and he is much harder on the throttle than I was. Now, 34 miles got us back to the house with 27% left in this battery. So from a pro perspective, if you're looking to increase your range, you want to take a bike further, and you want to have that comfortability in knowing that you can get way out and then get home all in one charge, then an 80 amp hour battery might be the way that you want to go. All right, the next pro to this bike is the battery lid that comes with it. To have a battery lid that fits this bike the way this does and allow your seat to sit flush, it's almost like this is the factory style of battery lid. So they did a really good job of creating something that looks good, but also has a lot of functionality to it. All of the install points were super easy to do, so this was not a hard thing to accomplish whatsoever. But I'm gonna take this seat off. We're gonna look at some of the connectors, because that's when things start to get a little fishy. You do not have your screen area. This is where your seat connects. This does not come on the battery lid. You have to take this off of your factory battery lid and then put it on here. But you have no screen area where you normally would have on your regular battery lid. And then once you take this thing off, it is not nearly as tight as it was from the factory. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is maybe strapping this down in a little bit different of a manner, trying to put some padding in here to hold this battery in place. But once you open the lid, you no longer have an area for your gas strut. So this thing just kind of flops around, which it sucks when you're trying to get your battery out, but it's not a huge deal riding. It holds everything in there really tight. Another con that we ran into during this trip is this battery connector, after probably 25 miles or so, started to wiggle itself out. So the bike had shut itself off when we were on the trail. We opened up the battery lid, pushed it back in, and it reseated and everything was fine. The problem is that that's just a pain, and especially if you're racing these bikes, that will not be a good long-term connection. And that's why I said we do not want to bring these batteries in yet until we have a chance to thoroughly test it and maybe provide some feedback on how to make this mechanism a little bit better. Your communication cable is obviously different, but it screws on and screws off, as opposed to the clicking mechanism that Surron uses, which still works pretty well, but it's not what you're used to seeing coming from the factory. So a few things to note while you're watching this video. If the camera is shaking or I'm doing this constantly, it's because we are way up in the upper peninsula of Michigan, basically as close to Canada as you can get without being in Canada. We're fighting off mosquitoes and flies. The bugs up here are relentless, so we're doing our best to try to record this video after a fresh ride so it's still fresh in our mind, but also not get eaten alive in the process. I want to talk about the process for this battery. Now, this is a prototype. This is not the complete product, and it's going to have some issues with it. And I want to say that because I don't want it to be a bad representation of DHSXE, because this battery was shipped to me as a way to test their product to make sure that it does have long-term efficiency, not just about the fit and finish, but there are a couple of things that I want to be honest with you about that we have seen. All right, so now one thing that you have to consider if you're going to upgrade from your 55 amp hour or your 60 amp hour, either on the 24 or 25 Ultra B, and go with an 80 amp hour battery from any company, no matter what, is you are going to add some additional weight. So what we had to do is increase our compression by 2 clicks on the forks to try to even that out. And that seemed to work really well. I don't even know if you would need 2 clicks. Maybe 1 click is enough. The Cirrus suspension trail tune is already extremely plush. And if you haven't checked out Cirrus, I'll put the link in the description for this kit specifically. But the weight is something that's going to be a problem for some people. An additional 16 pounds when you're picking the bike off the trail, you're loading it onto your motorcycle ramp, whatever it is. 16 pounds does suck. It's not something that everybody wants to do, but you're sacrificing 16 pounds to get an additional 15 miles of range. So for me, it makes perfect sense. And for the way that we ride, it makes perfect sense to bite the bullet, put in a bigger battery, and be able to go on longer style rides. That's really all that we have for the 80 amp hour battery test. We have not gotten hundreds of miles on this battery yet, so we don't know how it performs in the long term. But if the only thing that you have to sacrifice is a little bit of weight, for me, 16 pounds isn't a ton. My Stark weighs way more than this bike weighs, and I'm kind of comfortable picking that up now, so having to pick this up is not a huge deal. But outside of that, everything seems to be working the way it's supposed to work. The install of this battery is very easy. It's a couple battery terminals. All the connectors come pre-wired, so you just connect the factory connectors and install the aftermarket connectors from DHSXE. Trying to get that in is a mouthful, but this is something that for any serious trail rider, anybody who wants to go long distance but wants to have the reliability in their motorcycle, this is probably something that you want to consider. Whether it's this battery or another battery, we don't really care. We're just trying to give you the information as it comes to us, and as we get it, deliver it in the best way possible. So if you guys have any questions or any concerns, or you want to know more about this battery specifically, leave those in the comments, shoot us an email, and we'll see you guys on the next one.